Hey guys, Captain Hep here. I'm going to do a quick video on carrier operations. Before we start, I'm going to point out that I have my flaps set up in such a way so that I can control each notch individually, not just a toggle up or down. I can control combat flaps, takeoff flaps, and also landing flaps all individually. Will make your life a little bit easier if you have a similar setup. Anywho, so I'm going to set combat flaps to start with. I'm going to press and hold my brake, not that this plane really needs it, but some heavier planes that you take off from a carrier, like a Panther for example, will. And I'm going to run up the throttle carefully. Easy does it, not too much, because oh dear, that will happen. Could be a problem for you. Okay, so now that I've shown what not to do, and that would be to hold your brakes on a tail dragger airplane while running up, here we go. This carrier, I don't believe, is moving at all. The water isn't moving past us, so the techniques that we'll use for this one will be a little bit different than a lot of carriers you'll use in game. This makes for a really short runway, so we're still smoothly revving up the throttle. You have to be careful with that. The nose will still pop up fairly quickly. Be careful not to hit the wing on the conning tower. And we're airborne. This plane accelerates fairly quickly. This is a very easy airplane to fly, so it's not too bad. Zeros are actually incredibly easy to fly in carrier operations. So if you've never done carrier operations before, go get a zero free flight, do something along those lines, because it really is an absolute piece of cake flying that thing, especially from a carrier deck. It flies so slowly that if the carrier is moving, say at almost 40 miles per hour, the zero feels like it can almost hover down onto the deck like a helicopter. Anywho, so we're going to reduce throttle because we don't want to be going too fast, because remember that carrier isn't moving at all. And we're going to start our turn. Gentle left-hand turn here. I'm going to reduce throttle again. We're going around 200 miles per hour, which is a little bit fast. So we're still reducing. I'm going to drop the landing gear. I'm also going to drop my first notch of flaps, which this game calls combat. I'm going to check my position here. And we're going to start gently working our way into our final approach. I'm going to drop my second notch of flaps. I'm still keeping an eye on my speed. I'm also going to go inside the cockpit. You can see there's a little reticle below the aiming reticle, which actually shows me where the plane is actually heading, not where it's pointing. So if you're going to aim the guns, use the great big white one, but if you're just looking for where you're going, use the little one. You can see is just on the stern of the ship right now. We've just dropped our last notch of flaps. You can see I'm heading a little bit too low. I'm going to give it some throttle. Going a little bit too high now. And I'm going to increase to full power just before I land, just in case I miss the wire. Now what just happened? You can see retracting up from the tail is actually a tail hook right there. That extends automatically as you get close to a ship. And what it will catch is a set of wires. You can kind of see, if you look really closely, there's one that's just behind the plane right now, that dark black line. There's another one that's just in front of the plane right now. Again, the dark black line is kind of obvious at the moment. You can see there's a whole series of these dark lines stretching across the deck. These are wires, almost spring-loaded, actually steam-dampened wires, that your plane's tailhook will catch to suddenly and very quickly slow it down. So you will land successfully if you can catch with your tailhook any of these wires. You have to land at an upward angle of attack. That means your nose has to be pointing somewhat up to be able to make it work. But otherwise, it really isn't all that hard. You just have to place the plane right at the right speed. So we're going to try this again. We're taking off. Easy does it. I'm going to keep my flaps a little bit longer this time, because that was a much shorter takeoff run than I had last time. So I'm going to keep my combat flaps for a little while until we get a little bit more working speed here. I'm just going to gently arc this thing back around. This is called a pattern, by the way. This pattern, or this rectangular movement that we're doing around the carrier or an airport. This is what real pilots do, actually, and it's usually always done to the left because that's the side on which the pilot usually sits. So we're going a little bit slower than we were before. That's all well and good, totally fine. I'm going to make this a little bit shorter approach just to save on some time. I've still got my first notch of flaps. I'm reducing power. I'm going to drop my landing gear again. I'm going to drop my second notch now as I'm banking for my base turn, now straight into my final turn. Reducing power again still. And as I complete the final turn, I'm going to drop my third notch of flaps, go into the cockpit. I'm looking at that pipper, which is that reticle just below the aiming reticle. We're going to finish lining up because I turned actually a little bit too early. We're getting a little bit slow. So I've got some throttle. Now we're a little bit high. No throttle, keeping the nose up. And we've caught. And I was so sure that I was going to catch, I didn't bother increasing the throttle all the way. But it's a good practice to increase the throttle all the way to wet just before you touch down or just after you touch down, just in case on the off chance you happen to miss a wire. But at any rate, that's it for now. Hope it was helpful. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you like it, please like and subscribe. And happy flying.